Ric, thank you so much for being here for the 22nd Happiness Happens Month.
Great to be with you. Great. Thanks for having me, Pamela. I'm excited.
Well, thank you. So we actually just met, so I'm kind of letting people know who I've known and who I'm just meeting. So I'm making new friends on our Happiness Happens Month tour this year. So Lindsay, we have a common publisher, HCI, and so Lindsay said you would be a great person to talk to us about humor. And humor is obviously happy, but humor is also a little tricky because we live in this I don't like the word PC, but I would just say sometimes sensitive. Humor can be something that pushes buttons, and sometimes it's obvious, there's an obvious inappropriateness to it depending on the environment you're in, like a workplace environment. And then sometimes there's not. So obviously you had to figure out how to straddle that with your new book, which again, I kept reading the word funny, and I haven't had the opportunity to read it since it's coming out in September of 2022. If you're listening to this video in 2023, so it'll be out by then. But you can pre-order the book now, so please go online and pre-order. So you talked about humor a lot, so I'd love to hear a story about humor related to the book or not, and and how it's making you happy.
You bet. Well, the book is called Chase the Bears, Little Things to Achieve Big Dreams. And one of the topics in the book is the power of self-deprecating humor. And I just gave a TEDx talk on the power of self-deprecating humor, and I was surprised it ended up being the sixth most watched TEDx talk in the world in May. And you're definitely right. There could be some edges to it, and you have to be careful sometimes. But the great thing about self-deprecating humor is it's safe because you're the target. And I had to learn to essentially have self-deprecating humor by virtue of some of the things that happened to me in life. At 15, I was fired from Wendy's because my manager said that I didn't have what it takes to make it in fast food. So I had to laugh about that. And then 20 years later, I'm elected to Congress, and I'm in the Oval Office with President Bush and Ted Kennedy signing a bill. And I thought about my manager saying I'm not good enough for fast food. And I'm like, I'm in the Oval Office now, okay. And that still didn't keep people from writing me letters. One smart aleck constituent wrote me a letter saying, you couldn't serve French fries. What makes you think you can serve our country? And I wrote back and said, shut up, Mom. I don't need to hear that. But self-deprecating humor has really changed my life. It's what gave me a political career. I wasn't someone that knew about it, but I kind of stumbled onto it. When Jeb Bush first ran for governor, I was his joke writer. And one of the lines I gave him, it was, one of my opponents has accused me of running on my father's coattails. Well, to show that I'm running on my own merits, I've decided to go ahead and change my last name. I don't know what to change it to yet, but it's either going to be Reagan or Eisenhower. And by poking fun of himself, it helped him connect with people. And then when I decided to run for the US Congress, I sort of did the same thing. I was criticized heavily because I had never run for public office before, and both of my opponents were experienced. One had been mayor for 8 years and the other state legislator, and they said that I was an amateur compared to them in a debate. And I just said, you know what, I am an amateur, but it was amateurs who built Noah's Ark, and it was professionals who built the Titanic. And I didn't hear about that issue anymore, and people just could relate to me, and it helped make all the difference.
Well, I think humor is you really can never go wrong when you make people authentically laugh. And I'm laughing about your fast food story because right out of college, I had a professional job with a bad boss, sort of really bad boss. And so one of our volunteers that I was working with, I was in the nonprofit world, was working for a huge fast food chain that was expanding. So I went through the interview process just because he was so excited about this thing. And I thought, well, maybe I should consider it. I'm 21, 22, whatever. I'm super young. I was like, maybe I should consider it. And I got feedback that from their testing that I didn't have what it takes to be a manager of this fast food chain. And I walked away with really mixed emotions. I was like, okay, am I offended that I don't have the managerial skills to manage a fast food restaurant, or is that actually a good thing? So I can go do, I haven't done anything as grand as you, but go do a few a few other things. And yeah, like I said, it is on how you look at it. So I do love that story. And I actually think I may have remembered when I lived in Florida, Jeb Bush using your witty lines. So
yeah. And well, I like your style, getting fired from the fast food place. So we connect there. But yeah, and I empathize with having the toxic boss. We've all been through that, and they probably did you a favor, helping you to move on.
it was, yeah, exactly. It is one of those pieces. I also did match the psychological profile for one company of a Fortune whatever salesperson, and I did actually want to write that psychologist when I was actually working for Staples at the time, which when you're selling office supplies, super competitive, lots of people, and there was like over close to 700 or 800 of us, and I'm on President's Club. I wanted to send them a postcard saying I made President's Club, even though I obviously missed the psychological profile. But here's a picture of me with my margarita.
That's right. How do you like me now? Like Toby Keith said, right?
Yeah. How do you like me now? So would you want to be a humorist speechwriter now in politics out of curiosity, or would you just don't want to touch that stuff?
It's still easy for me because I use the same type of humor. I tend to poke fun of myself, and I think it's still easy. It helps you connect with people and deflect criticism, and I'd use it today. I don't have any problem. What's counterintuitive about it, though, Pamela, the reason it's a secret weapon that's not used is because from the time we're little kids, we're told to fake it till you make it and put your best foot forward and never let them see you sweat. And the truth is exactly the opposite of all that. The truth is, to connect with people, you need to be vulnerable and authentic and real. And it takes self-confidence to use self-deprecating humor, because what you're really saying is, I know that I'm flawed, but I also know that I'm a good guy. I believe in myself, and you should believe in me too. And people can connect with that, but you got to really have the internal self-confidence to be able to poke fun of yourself.
Actually, it's funny. I just did a LinkedIn survey about confidence today, and confidence is also one of the 31 types of happiness, because I think confidence is super important to helping people be happy, because it does allow you to, like you just said, do when you do something silly or you fall, you're just like, you kind of laugh at yourself instead of being like it ruining your day. And you're like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. Like, why? like why? It could happen to anyone. It just could, but I'm also a tripper. So you did a nice bridgeway there to your new book that's coming out. And I don't have a cover of the copy yet because it's a little early for that when we're doing this interview, but Chase the Bears, tell us a little bit about why somebody's going to be happier after they read it.
Well, Chase the Bears is written for people who want to chase their dreams. Chase the Bears is a metaphor for chasing your dreams and for people who want to be happy. And a big part of that equation, in my view, is first deciding what it is that you really want, not your mom or your friends or your family, what you really want. And then once you're aligned with your purpose, then it's a matter of using your God-given gifts and trusting your intuition and taking some chances. And so what my book is about, it's kind of two parts. The first part of this is I want to lift people up saying, look, this is how you can chase your dreams and be happy. And the three main things are, we need you to use your gifts, which is that thing that you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. We need you to trust your intuition because it's your internal GPS. And three, there are some secret techniques that you can use in terms of visualizations and affirmations that are going to help you take those baby step risks to get ahead. And then the second part of the book is bringing people together. And that's where it talks about connecting by humor, civility, and learning to network the right way. So that's the focus. And I think if you're lifting people up and you're bringing people together, there's a pretty good shot that you're going to be happy.
Yeah, and I agree. When people ask me what is the one thing they can do to be happier, I talk about a Harvard study that goes back at least 7 years at this point. It may be even longer, but it's those relationships we have and authentic relationships and online or in person. The world is still built on relationships, and change is built on relationships, and it does make us so much happier. So our final question, which you ironically sort of addressed, I think, in your last answer, or not specifically to you, but one of my principles of my book, Practical Happiness, is happiness is personal. And I think in this world we live in with a lot of groupthink, a lot of competitive happiness, we sometimes forget that our happiness is personal to us. Our significant other might not be their cup of tea, our family, our friends, whatever, but we can all have our own piece of what is our happiness. Now, that doesn't mean you never go do something that makes your significant other happy, even if that's not on your happy top 10 list, because that's other types of happiness, love and giving and things like that. So that's not the implication of the question. But what is one of your happinesses personal? So like I said, it might or might not make anyone else happy, but what makes you happy?
Of the things that I can control in life, so obviously everybody be happy if they won the lottery and everybody be sad if they went through a divorce, but the day-to-day things that I can control, the three things that I have decided to make time for because it makes me happy are riding my motorcycle, going to college football games, and going to comedy clubs. And I reached that because I was going through a tough relationship that was ending, and I was working 14 hours a day, and I was making a lot of money, but I just wasn't happy. And I was like, I got to start doing what I really love. And so I got together with my own little motorcycle gang of buddies, and we started riding every weekend. And I went up to New York with my brothers and saw my favorite comedians. And I signed up and got UCF football tickets and great seats and went to the games every week. And my happiness really escalated. I have to tell you, I made a little bit less money that year, but it was like a 401k happiness plan. I really felt much happier day to day, and I continue to do those things now.
I love that. Well, because also happiness, when you're talking about your 401k plan, though, it does help us live healthier. and,
Yeah.
and if we're happier, studies do show it contributes to our longevity. There's always these exception places people, but it does contribute to those things. And so as you do get older, as I've learned, as my happiness changes, as I changed, principle 3, as you do get older, you do want to live happier and you do want to be healthier. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely. When you mentioned Harvard, there's a guy who's kind of a guru of happiness up there named Arthur C. Brooks. And he wrote this book, From Strength to Strength, you may have heard about. And I was very honored, even though he's a #1 New York Times bestseller, he endorsed my book, and I was very humbled by it. But the crux of what he said is essentially what you said, is that you spend your first part of your life trying to get the trophies. He calls that the first curve. And the people who are happiest in the second curve of their life is helping others get the trophies, lifting others people up. Teaching, that sort of thing. So what you're doing, writing a book to guide others and doing podcasts and stuff, that really is associated with the people who are older in life who are most happy, as opposed to the child star who's still trying to be a star, or the washed up football player who's still trying to play at age 50. You got to go on to the next step, the second curve of life.
Well, that's principle 3 in my book. When I had a reporter that asked me at 20 years, he was interviewing me about the society, and he's like, what have you learned about happiness? And I worked in the mental health field too for about a decade. And I think one of the things I became aware of that was probably new from the journey for the 4 principles was that there's so many people, and when I do coaching, there's so many people who are trying to cling to past happiness, and it doesn't fit their current circumstances, whatever they are, for whatever reason they changed, controllable, uncontrollable. There's a million things that go into that. But if you're not adapting what makes you happy now and owning it and being okay with it and saying, oh God, it was so great when I got to go party till 4 a.m. and then I was still at work at 8 and I didn't even miss a beat. That may not be the case if you've got a newborn baby. You maybe like, yeah, right now happiness would be if I just actually got 2 hours of sleep together.
Yes.
One 120-minute segment, because your life changed. Now it'll change again. I always remind parents, I'm like, you're going to be in that place, you're just hoping to go to the bathroom alone. But then fast forward a decade or 2, and then you're just hoping your kids want to have dinner with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we hope they want to have the family meal. That would be so nice. And because life changes and your expectations have to change. So I can't wait to read your book when it comes out in print. And I need to go pre-order my copy. So thank you so much for joining us for the 22nd Happiness Happens month, and I'm sure we will be in touch.
Well, thank you for having me, Pamela. And I love your book and love what you're doing. And I wish you a wonderful happiness month.
Thank you.
All righty.